Greetings, my darlings. I am Violet Nocturne, your vessel through the labyrinthine corridors of shadow, where we unearth the macabre, the grotesque, and the surreal. Tonight, I ask you to follow a thread that promises a tapestry woven with dread. Imagine a puppet, a simple thing of wood and string. Harmless, isn't it? But, oh, how deceptive appearances can be. Let us delve into the story titled, The Forgotten Puppeteer. Once upon the unlit edges of a fog-shrouded town named Wicklehurst, there existed a peculiar shop tucked neatly between an abandoned chapel and a stone bridge that spanned the colorless waters of Cursed Creek. This was the Marionette Emporium, a lonely abode where wooden miniature actors stood stiffly in postures of theatrical drama. The shop was owned by Gerard Figs, a hollow-eyed man with a face like weathered bark. His love for his marionettes bordered on obsessive. He was a virtuoso of his craft, creating them not merely as toys, but as reflections of human sorrow, joy, and, disturbingly, fear. Though Gerard rarely ventured beyond Wicklehurst, whispers of his craftsmanship had carried themselves far and wide. Artists, connoisseurs, and even fortune-tellers spoke of the uncanny allure of his puppets. Local legends claimed his creations held a life force of their own, a ridiculous notion, surely. Still, parents in the town forbade even a glance at the puppets, fearing their children would fall under their sinister gaze. One night, the town was enveloped in an unsettling calm, broken only by the occasional, mournful cry of a loner crow. Inside the emporium, Gerard burned the midnight oil. He was meddling with his latest creation, a marionette unlike any before it. This one wore an exquisitely dark mantle, painted with patterns that whispered wicked symbols. Its visage was carved meticulously to have an expression half in anguish, half in glee. It was to be his magnum opus. But artistry comes with a steep cost. Gerard poured not just sweat and tears into his work, but something more formidable, his very essence, his soul. As the clock struck 3, a breath siphoned out of his chest, and shadows in the corners of the workshop deepened to grotesque obsidian wells. He fell forward, his lifeless form sprawled across the table. The puppet, oh, that insidious puppet, shifted its glassy painted eyes and tilted its head. The townspeople were puzzled when the emporium failed to open the following day. Days turned into weeks, and the windows remained dark. The whisperers, those who thrive on mystery, speculated wildly. Some said Gerard had met his end. Others believed he had vanished into his puppets. How quaint that gossip can write half-truths into existence. Several months passed before a young woman named Lila, an amateur historian with a penchant for the arcane, braved the emporium's eerily inviting threshold. She had heard tales of Gerard's disappearance and found herself compelled, not by ordinary curiosity, but a chilling summons she could not shake. She attributed it to mere intrigue, but in her dreams, she had seen the puppets dance. Yes, dance, wooden limbs snapping and twisting grotesquely under the strings the shadows themselves pulled. Lila, wrapped in a trench coat and an arsenal of self-assured rationality, entered the shop. The air inside was heavy, almost syrupy thick. Each step produced a wooden creak underfoot. Displayed marionettes hung from their strings in perfect, haunting silence, their painted eyes seeming to follow her every move. Through her explorations, Lila found the puppet, the magnum opus of Gerard Figs. It sat in an elaborate setup, a tiny stage with drawn curtains. Its eyes, painstakingly crafted, seemed a little too lifelike. Lila reached out to touch it, electrified by an odd mix of dread and exhilaration, when a gasp seemed to ripple through the air. "Against all reason," she whispered. "Who are you?" Only a fool would expect a response, right? But respond it did. The puppet's slack jaw creaked and jerked open. It did not speak in words, not at first, but in a series of unsettling twitches, its head tilting to one side, its legs jerking as if to rise. Then the words came, not from the puppet's mouth, but from the very walls of the emporium. I am not who, but what, and what I am is master now. Lila stumbled back, clutching her coat. Her instincts screamed for her to run, yet her feet seemed rooted. The puppet dropped from its strings as if severed from some invisible hand. It stood on its own spindly legs, jerky like a spider learning to walk, but menacing in its unholy animation. You gave Gerard no heed, yet here you stand, it rasped. Shadows began to ripple unnaturally on the walls as if reacting to the puppet's authority. I fed on his devotion. I grow stronger still, feeding on fear, on awe, on fascination. You entered willingly. Lila tried to back away, drumming up some logic to defend the insanity before her, but logic had long since abandoned the scene. The puppet stretched out one mangled hand, the painted grin across its wooden face, growing wider, as though mocking her panic. She uttered those fatal words every doomed soul has spoken in desperate hubris. You're just a doll. Ah, it hissed. But aren't we all puppets, moving to unseen strings, feeding, purposes not our own? It launched itself, but there was no clash, no scream. Not in that moment. Lila vanished before her own sound could pierce existence. Weeks later, the Emporium reopened. A new caretaker? Not quite. Locals have seen a new puppet displayed there, a figure in a trench coat with eyes pleading as if frozen mid-shock, uncannily lifelike, a grim museum to those who dare pry beyond what should be left untouched. Oh, but do not fret, my dear watchers. Should you wish to tempt fate, Wicklehurst isn't so far away, is it now? Until next we unravel the threads of shadow together, let this remain a cautionary tale. After all, who holds the strings when it comes to you? Farewell, my darlings.